Today's guest is John Wise. He is a Wichita State University track coach and runs the YouTube channel Travel with the Wiseguy. We really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do the same. All right, we're up. John, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was going to be fun.
Yeah.
Very neat. Thank
I
you.
had to wait for the trains to get out of the way. You know, the Wichita trains.
Yeah.
They decided
Was
to
it
just
downtown?
be parked. Yeah, right on. So I live over by campus, Wichita State, and you can take the street straight over, and that's where the trains are. And if anybody drives through that part of Wichita, they know
Yes.
every other time you're going to get stopped, and tonight they were just parked. They weren't moving, so we took a long way.
If you take 13th going downtown, you're asking for it.
Yeah, I was asking for it.
Yeah. It's brutal.
Yeah, that 5 o'clock traffic on East 13th, it's brutal.
Yeah, so I took the scenic route.
Right.
Yeah. Then if you go 21st, you get stopped by a train, so it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Either way.
Yeah. Totally.
either way. You know, I really enjoy your videos. Troy was the one who actually showed me your videos. They're really unique because most people are like, let's go look at Kansas City or go to Denver. I like your unique approach about going to see the smaller towns off the beaten path.
So it's funny because when I started, I really didn't know what I was doing. And so at first I kind of was doing what you're saying. I just was like, let's make a travel channel. And I went to a bunch of like popular places, and there's way better videos by way more popular people about all the places that I was like, I don't think that's going to be very good, because why would they watch mine when there's a way better video and so then it took me about, I don't know. So at first the first goal I had was to do one video a week for a year. And it was during COVID because I'm a coach at Wichita State. So the season was canceled and we couldn't recruit. And I did a ton of international traveling before COVID, so I couldn't do that. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? There's nothing to do. And so the idea was to start, buddy at WSU TV, buddy of mine, said, why don't you start a YouTube channel? Because I'd always make like little videos when I came back from Iceland or from New Zealand. I'd make like a 2-minute thing and put on Facebook. He's like, why don't you do something like that and put it on YouTube? And I was like, nobody's going to watch this. This is not going to be interesting. I don't want to watch this,
Right.
But it gave me something to do. So this is a roundabout answer to what you were saying. So at first I was just like a video a week. So what is that? Okay, well, these people do travel videos. I'm going to go to the Rocky Mountains, or I'm going to go to Glacier National Park or whatever. And then when I did that, I did about 2 or 3 videos. I'm like, I'm out of footage. I have nothing. What am I going to do this week? So I was having to come up with ideas for how could I make videos, but there's only so many places you can go, like Kansas City or, like that. So one weekend I decided to go over to Pitcher, Oklahoma. And Pitcher is one of the, biggest ghost towns ever. It's right in the corner. It's a mining, ghost town. You said like 15,000 people. Now there's literally not a single person there because they've all been evacuated for toxic mining chemicals. And when I went there, I'm having lunch at a Mexican place there in the little town next to it. And I'm talking there was a firefighter guy there. And we start talking, and he's like, oh, you like ghost towns? Let me take you over to the station. So he brings this map out, and there's all these ghost towns in that little section. So I got a hotel room, and the next day I filmed like 3 other videos, and I go, oh, this is what the channel is going to be. Like small towns, ghost towns, abandoned places. But I could make like 4 videos in 2 days, release them once a month. That's a month of videos. That was the, so that was the way like to make like a channel that has some consistency. So anyways, that was the start. That's how I ended up. So eventually, at first it was just going to be some traveling around and see if I could find interesting, odd things. And then I'm from a small town. Well, I grew up on a farm, but near a real small rural area in Ohio. So I understand these towns, I think. I understand kind of the people that live there, or, what their life is like, because that's what I grew up in, a kind of middle of nowhere type place. So, and I'm kind of a fan of history. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting to learn like what happened to this town, or this town used to have 900 people. Now it has 75 people. What happened? And in Kansas is pretty consistent, usually some of the stories, but everyone has a unique kind of thing. And every town kind of has a historic building of some sort.
Right.
There's some old building there, and so every town is unique that way, especially around here.
Right. The fascinating thing about rural Kansas is the old school buildings.
Yes.
In Ohio, do they have those, or is that more of a
For sure. I went to
Western thing?
some of them. So I went home, when was it? This last year. I went back home for a couple days.
Oh, you
and
actually went to school to one?
when I look at them now, I'm like, yes, I went to a school that looks like the schools that I'm visiting out there, you know.
That's funny.
And like my elementary school, because I'm old. I'm 50, so in 1980s, I'm going to these little schools, and that was right before schools in where I grew up kind of started being more modern looking. They had been schools that were 65 years old, and then after that, they built a bunch of new schools. So I happened to go to schools in the old ones, and now they're like museums or they're community centers, usually something like that. So if I go back, that's what they are. The one I went to junior high in, because I did a video about it actually when I went back, and I got to go in the old school, and it's like the city hall, the town hall, and the sheriff's office, and everything is. They have like a Mennonite school in there now or something like So so that the schools are great, and a lot of times you go to some of these places, people own the school and they might be living in the school, and that's interesting. Wichita has a school downtown that is an apartment now. That was the original school in Wichita, the Loft 324 or something like that. That was one of the original Wichita high schools. Now it's an apartment complex, and you walk down the halls and it looks like you're in high school walking down the halls there. Yeah, so those are cool.
Those ones that you see that are like brick, just out on the prairie where there's nothing left, just the school. I've wondered, because you sometimes go or get real up close to them, or even like try to step inside. Is that private property, or are you just...
So it kind of depends. Sometimes there'll be signs like, private property, no trespassing.
Right.
Sometimes they're owned by people. Sometimes they're just abandoned, and it might be owned by like whoever owns this land or something like that. Somebody probably owns it. It could be the city or the, county or something like that. But I usually am pretty careful if I'm gonna, film. And sometimes if I do that, I've talked to somebody like in town. I'd be like, hey, is it okay if I step in? And
Right.
every single time they say, oh yeah, absolutely, no problem, because there's like 8 people there, and they think it's cool that somebody's there that's interested in the building. A lot of times I'll take you there. Here, let me show you some pictures in my house. I went there, 45 years ago. One of them this was in, I think, Lincoln County, Kansas. Dirt road. It was a rock school, and I was outside the fence. It was on a farmer's property, but I was like stopped on the road just taking a video, zooming in. And a farmer saw me, and I waved at him. He waved over, and he walks over. He said, "Come on over." And it was a 1-room old stone schoolhouse. And he was like, "I was in the last class. There was 3 of us, and it was me and my wife and one other guy who he ended up marrying. His wife would walk over the hill to that school, and this is where their farm was. And they had one other person. They had 3 people in the last class, and then it was on their farm, and the post office was in their house. So he thought it was just cool that somebody found it and thought that it was interesting, and so most all the time, people, if you're talking like you're curious about the history, you're respectful, almost every single time they're gonna say absolutely, go check it out. Now if you're trying to be sneaky, that might be a little bit different. So I'm just out in the open. If somebody says no, I'm like, absolutely no problem. I'll just take a picture from the road or something.
Yeah. Those small town people really, like, if you do go show interest, like you said, I can totally see that, because they're wanting to show you, everything, because no one comes to them like that.
So one of the things I really like is that often the videos I make are the only thing you can find on YouTube about that town.
Yeah.
If you do a search for, some little town in Kansas or a ghost town, my video is the only one that will come up. Now, there's not very many people that know about those places, so it's not like you're going to get a lot of people just stumbling across them. So you get people that are just interested in that topic. And so if I do a video, like if I go back to Ohio and I do a video about Cincinnati, it'll get far less views than some ghost town in Kansas, which is interesting. You'd think, well, a million people here is going to watch this, but there's a million videos about Cincinnati, So I learned that pretty early, that not to try to go to where, like, there's enough people out there watching YouTube that if you can find your niche, that they'll eventually find it. So, and it's slowly growing. It's been 5 years of growing the channel, so it doesn't has never had like a huge explosion. It's just been a consistent build. So people stumble upon it. You mentioned like you kind of stumble upon it, and that's how people usually find it.
It just showed up. I had to have just showed up on my feed, because I like a lot of that stuff. I like the rural area, the ghost towns, especially in Kansas. I'm biased, or just the greater Midwest. But yeah, it just showed up on my feed, and I've been watching, on and off ever since.
I appreciate it. I never thought I would be doing this. It's totally something. 15 years. Well, when I moved to Wichita in 2006, track coach, and that's what I was. So and even when I started it, it's not like I thought it would be what it is now. So it's and who knows, in 10 years it might be gone and it's something you're doing something else. Right. So somebody told me, it's like, hey, your skills that you're picking up, you used to picked up before, you're using now, and the skills you're doing now, you're going to do for the next thing you do, and who knows what that is.
Sure.
So
did you move here for the WSU job?
Yeah. So cool. Lived in Ohio for 30 years. I went to college at Kent State University, and I ran there. Then I was hired there, and the guy that hired me is now the Wichita State head coach. He was the head coach at Kent State. He got the head coaching job here. I stayed back in Ohio for a few more years. Hired me about 5 years later.
Very cool.
That is cool.
In 2006. So yeah, this is almost 20 years.
Cool.
Yeah.
We both love the movie Tombstone. I'm sure you've probably seen Tombstone. I watched your video I had no idea Wyatt Earp had connection to Delano.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was a great video.
So that was interesting. So I went to Tombstone. I did a Tombstone video too. It was an early video.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
And so to talk about that for a second, I'll come back to the Wichita one. But I didn't know too much about Wyatt Earp and his Kansas history, even when I started doing the YouTube channel. And so I go down to Tombstone, and it's a really cool. It's kind of touristy, but it's also, there's so much history there. So if you like Tombstone,
big? Like today,
it's like 1,000 people. So
really?
Yeah. So which it used to be 10 times or 15 times that big. It was a mining town.
I mean, that's tiny.
Yeah. But you can see like it's got the bones of a bigger town, but it's just there's not as many people live there anymore because there's not many jobs anymore. And so I go there. I stay in like a miner's cabin that I could walk to the historic downtown. So I decide I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out in Tombstone, and there's like the tourist people, and they're there during the day, but then in the late, it's the locals. And so I'm hanging out with the local people, and I'm in the bar that Wyatt Earp worked at. Wow. And there's one called Doc Holliday over here, Doc Holliday's bar. And I'm kind of stumble out into the street at midnight, and it's all dirt street still in the main area. And I'm like, it was kind of a surreal moment, thinking like totally. What happened and the people that would walk through there. So then I got real into kind of Wyatt Earp, learning more about Wyatt Earp. I knew he had been in Wichita, but I didn't know much about it. And then I was like, I couldn't find much information about that part of his life in Wichita, but I knew about Delano and the Wild West part of Wichita. So I just took a bunch of notes, went down to the river, started talking.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
And that was kind of a fun video to put together.
That's cool. You stumbled out of that barn looking for a fight.
Looking for if I could walk to my hotel.
Looking for Johnny Ringo.
I may have had some really off-tune karaoke that night. So yeah, it's cool.
Is the OK Corral still there?
Yeah, so they have where that all happened there, and they do like the gunfights, like in Dodge City does that kind of stuff. So that stuff's not that interesting to me, but the actual place that it happened, and even the town has a lot of historical places. It's like the county seat of that area, and the courthouse is still there, and they have like a Boot Hill Cemetery where a bunch of those guys are, buried. So that was really fascinating. And not only is Tombstone, but there's other little ghost towns all around that area because there's all these mining towns. And so you could I want to go back someday and really spend some time down there. I went to like 2 or 3 of them, made a couple videos.
Was that the boom in Tombstone? Was it gold or what was it? Do you even know?
What was I don't know if it was gold, but it was certainly a mining boom. That's why they went there. Yeah. And then obviously they got into other stuff.
Right.
Oh, and I went to, what was it? I think it was the bar that Doc Holliday was the card dealer or whatever, and they played the movie Tombstone 24 hours a day on the TV. Wow. I'm like, surely they get tired of watching this movie. But
Silver.
well, there you go.
Silver.
Okay, I was gonna say that, but I wasn't sure.
Boom in Tombstone, Arizona was primarily fueled by the discovery and extraction of silver.
So is it a mountainous? I
Yeah.
know it's not like Breckenridge or something.
It's mountain. Yeah, there's definitely some mountains there. Very hilly. Yeah, for sure. It's cool. If you ever, I mean, it's way down by Mexico, so it's way down there. Mm-hmm. And I actually that day, that was the end of a trip. I drove from Canada to Mexico on US 89. There was this real scenic highway I did like for 10 days, and I finished that day. First time I'd ever seen like the wall. It was in Nogales, Arizona, Mexico. And then I drove to Tombstone that day. So that's how close you are. It was 50 miles from, where you'd cross over the border.
Damn.
And you think about like, well, what was that like in the 1880s?
Yeah.
Like, that had to have been just crazy because, there weren't roads. The train was just coming through pretty new and just wild. And I think about that stuff. I go like, man, what was it like to live in that time? If you take away like all of the things that we take for granted, like a toilet that flushes and air conditioning, and you think like, take all that stuff out. Like, what was it like here? What was it like, living that kind of life?
Filthy.
Yeah. That's the things that people don't probably even realize how difficult just general getting through the day is.
But a lot of that's probably perspective.
Absolutely.
Those people didn't know, 100 or 200 years from now, they could look back on us thinking, they didn't have X, Y, and Z. But
you're using microphones? What are you doing?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. So it's just all perspective, Who knows if they knew they were filthy?
They probably didn't. It's totally, you're right. It's 100% perspective. You hear that about people that grow up like in poverty. Like I grew up, I look back at it and I go, we weren't in poverty, but we weren't wealthy. But I think for our area, we were pretty well off. But then I went to college and realized, we didn't have any money. Like our family is fairly poor, right. So definitely perspective was significant on that.
Yeah, no doubt. When you go to these, like you said, the Lincoln County one, and any of these other counties in western Kansas or wherever, what type of itinerary do you have? Are you just going and kind of making it up as you go, or are you really doing some homework before you go, even to these small counties that aren't going to offer too much?
Yeah, I got to have a bit of a plan. So I would love to have no plan because that's really the most fun of exploring. But usually I have a limited amount of time. So I might have 2 days because we have track practice on Friday and I got to be back on Monday. So I have I have Saturday and Sunday. So Friday I got to get to where I need to get. So Saturday morning I can start doing stuff. And I have 2 days to maybe, let's say, explore Lincoln County or do whatever I want to do there. Okay, so I'm going to split the county in half maybe. And I got this on Saturday, this on Sunday. What's the most efficient way to get to these dots? So I'm kind of planning that out. I used to type it all out and have it all prepared. And now I can pretty much go with the flow. I just need to have somewhat of a plan. But I did the Oregon Trail, for 2 weeks on the Oregon Trail. And I did Route 66. Before I left, I literally I typed every dot, every town, every landmark in a Word document. There were hundreds and hundreds of them from beginning to end. And I would have it, and I would just check them off as I'd go. And I kind of was like, I got 54 dots today. And then the next day I have this. And so that helps you keep your pace through the day. It's real easy, especially for me in the very early morning, to just go this is cool. I'm going to stay here for a little while. And I think, we got 46 more places I got to get to today. Yeah. Especially with stuff like that. And so having a plan just keeps you on pace when you're trying to film it. If I had no time limit, I would just take my time and, okay, I'm done for the day. I'm going to go back to the hotel. And then I can stay here for 5 more days. But if I got 48 hours, I really kind of have to be efficient, especially going out to somewhere in western Kansas where I just can't get very often. Yeah. So it's a mix. I'm getting more, it's more, if you rode with me, if somebody was to do that, they would think that I'm doing it just random, but it's just that I don't have to write it down as much because I just know I've done it enough now. I can just kind of go and figure it out. Mm-hmm. I know if there's this many towns or this many dots, how long that's going to take. It's almost like you just kind of feel it as you go. I need to get going because I'm behind pace.
Sure. When you went down the Oregon Trail, Did you cross where like the Donner Party got stuck up in the mountains?
They
took a
that was
cutoff, I
different.
think.
Yeah, so that wasn't on the Oregon Trail. That ended up going a different
Yeah,
way.
they took a cutoff.
Correct.
That I think it was called the Hastings cutoff.
Yeah, so I went to where it says this is where the Donner Party went this way. So I went to to that point.
And I think that Hastings, I think he made that up. He made that cutoff up. I don't think he ever went down that cutoff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct. Yeah, and so he was
What a
trying
disaster.
to act like he knew more than he did.
Right.
Yeah, that's wild. And doing that trip, like obviously the tragedy of that whole deal is one thing, but then when you drive it and you're like, I can't imagine what it's like to ride this in a wagon or on a horse, or mostly a lot of them walked most of the way, and you start getting out to like Wyoming and some of those, Idaho and some of those places, just like, holy moly, I can't believe that they did this. It's remarkable. Like, I never thought about it until I actually did that video. I like the Oregon Trail, played the game, and, you die of dysentery. But that really sunk in. That was probably one of my favorite trips I've ever done, that by the end of the trip, and then at the very last part of the last video, I did like a wrap up. I'm in the cemetery in Oregon City, and it's like most of the people buried there were people that came on wagons. And so that's, you're sitting in the cemetery where they ended up, and so that was really kind of just all hit home for me. That was like, man, this is something else. It's the sense to wonder and the sense to explore.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got it. They had it, but it's a different version. Like, we're doing a different version of it today, but still that DNA is in us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a vehicle, to cross the Rockies, and then you even got the deserts of Nevada, Utah, and then you got to cross, is it the Sierra Mountains of California?
That's the California. So the California Trail went down that way. The Oregon Trail was more north.
That's just absurd.
Yeah, but they still had the Rocky Mountains to deal with, and in the winter they had to leave by a certain time so they could get there before. They had to leave there was like just a real specific time frame they had to leave by because of on both ends of the calendar, because it took so long.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And even back then, you've got natives. I mean, you don't even really know where you're going. You know where you're going, but you don't really. It's not like they have cell phones to be calling back home.
No, and so they have all these landmarks that you can find. There's like Chimney Rock in Nebraska. It's this big, tall, deal, and that's what you're looking for from 100 miles away. Oh, I think I see and so that would take 12 days to get there, and but yeah, the people. The one thing that I read is that people, I think, overestimate how many people died. There were a lot of people that died, but it wasn't near as many as people thought. But I think it was just so difficult to get through. There was, I think, something like 10 to 20% of the people died. But the people think that it was like most of the people died. But
yeah,
it's awesome. That's a really cool. And I did that because I did Route 66 as a kind of the first ever like trip like that I ever documented, and I did that US 89, and then I was like, there's not a single video about Route 6 or about the Oregon Trail from start to finish on YouTube. There's tons of them about Route 66.
Where does it start and finish?
Independence, Missouri, which is basically a Kansas City suburb,
right,
and Oregon City, Oregon. And so it goes tiny bit of Missouri, Kansas, up in Nebraska, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon. But there was not a single video. There would be little bits and pieces of it, but I'm like, I'm going to do the first one. I think I would say I think this is the only one from start to finish that you could find. Like I said, Route 66, US 50, Loneliest Road. There's lots of those on the internet, but so that was cool. That I think it's still the only one. But it's just not a trail that people drive and explore like they do Route 66.
Right.
It was fun. It was cool. And I could only find like one guidebook that had a whole bunch of to find here's where all the landmarks are. So that was a little more difficult, but yeah, it's fun figuring it out as you go, because it also went along the Pony Express Trail really close, which is kind of a fascinating piece of history if you're aware of the Pony Express and how they did. It was only like a 2-year thing, but it basically went along those same trails, along the Oregon Trail, then cut off and went like down to California, because they were trying to get it to San Francisco where they had the gold mining boom. And you would be traveling along the Oregon Trail, me doing it, and then there's a Pony Express station It was like, well, that's not what I'm doing, but that's interesting because it's on the same trail. And I go, maybe someday we'll do a Pony Express from start to finish, But yeah, it was awesome. That was a fun trip.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That is cool. It seems like you don't go east.
So it's funny you say that. So I have I have a video from North Carolina, 2 videos from North Carolina just
really?
happened. So we were in Charlotte for a track meet. And so while I was there, I did a couple videos. But this summer, I'm going to be heading east. Nice. I'm way more intrigued with the West for sure. Mm-hmm. So generally I will. And Missouri is I do some Missouri, Arkansas. I got some stuff in Florida because I did like one road trip a couple winters ago. But I'm from Ohio, obviously. US 50, which runs through Newton, goes all the way from east to west. It's the east-west highway. And a couple years ago, I did from Kansas City to California. I did a whole series on US 50. And I'm like, man, I need to do the other way. I need to go the other direction at some point. And so this summer, I'm going to do that. And so I'm going to basically, I'd already done Missouri, so I got to get to Missouri, and it goes through Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. It goes right past where I grew up. So I'm going to stop for a little bit there, and then just keep on going on out, West Virginia, Maryland. Then I'm going to head up Pennsylvania, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, and then I'm going to go to Maine for a couple days. Then I'm going to head back through Canada, and then back down like through the Dakotas.
Oh, cool.
So that's going to be this summer.
Wow.
It's
how much you spend on gas?
Whatever it costs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's it's pretty good. Gas pretty good right now. So whatever it costs. I used to rent cars a lot, but I actually bought a vehicle last year just for traveling. So it's better. I'm not having all the rental costs now.
How do you keep yourself in decent shape? Because I feel like
don't. I'm in terrible shape right now.
I mean, you could be in a lot worse
you look
shape.
Fine.
So I've had times where I would like work out pretty consistently through the trips, but man, I've done like month-long road trips, and that you just get a little bit tired. But what I've learned now is about every 3rd or 4th day I take a day off. And if you do that, that would be a good day to do a little bit of working out. But the nutrition, I have spurts. I'd be like, I eat good for a week. And
how could you not?
Yeah. And sometimes you get to a town and there's one place to eat, if you're in a little tiny town. And that's like a Mexican food place. I guess we're having chips and queso,
Right.
So, but yeah, I just need to do better. You can certainly get into some bad habits out there. I think one thing you can do is just prepare snacks. And so I usually don't eat lunch when I'm traveling all day. I'll get up, I eat a pretty healthy breakfast. And then I will wait until I'm done for the day before I eat again. But I might snack. I have some, beef jerky or something, throughout the day. And that'll generally is better than just stopping and eating Quick Trip or something,
Everybody doing that sort of lifestyle without some kind of discipline, you're going to balloon.
For sure.
Taquitos will stack up.
Yeah, they will.
I've done it before, so I definitely. But the problem is, I get to the end of the day and I'm really hungry, and I'll just, the pizza looks really good tonight,
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of just self-discipline. If I'm here, it's the same thing. So it's just, to me, it doesn't matter if I'm traveling or not. But the traveling, it's an active thing for me because I'm stopping, I'm getting out, I'm walking to check this out. So I'm pretty active, even though you're in a car a lot. You are still kind of like being pretty active. So it's some sort of when you drive, you burn more calories than when you're not. It's an interesting, even driving you burn calories. So
I wonder why that is.
I don't know. I don't know if it's
stuff
the tension.
You're burning your.
I think you're just active. Your brain's active.
That makes sense.
And you do burn rather than just hanging out watching TV at home or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Jamie, pull it up. No, I'm just kidding. There is something about like the amount of calories you burn while driving. You burn more driving than riding, even.
Huh. It must be something to do with the brain then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be.
Are you guys? What's your travel? What have you guys done? Where have you been? So I've been to 50 states and 23 countries.
Let's talk about that after we take a quick break.
Okay.
All right, we're back.
And so I was asking you guys about your traveling. Tell me about your where you guys have been.
Yeah.
Cool places.
Growing up, we went to Hawaii. We were pretty young though.
Awesome time.
Yeah, it was.
Went to Maui.
Yep, Maui was a great time.
I was just there in October.
Did the travel baseball, so hit a couple places, Memphis, Denver,
New York.
Cooperstown.
Have you ever gone to a bunch of baseball stadiums, like Major League State? Is that ever a thing?
I've only been to Kauffman. I've been outside,
Oh.
like Yankee Stadium and Busch
Yeah.
Stadium. Coors Field. Been to Coors
Okay.
Field. So
There you
2.
go. They're having a rough year.
Yeah, they
Oh
are.
my goodness.
Mine.
They did
Tragically
They did
bad.
sweep though. They just had a sweep.
Okay. I saw somebody on Twitter say that we finally won a series.
They
So
swept the series. It's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, they're having a terrible season.
so what's the best place you guys have traveled?
When I was in
memorable?
high school, a group, they took us to Europe and we hit London, Paris, Munich, Berlin, Prague, Vienna, Salzburg.
We
Is
went.
that a city, Salzburg?
Sounds
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I would believe it if you said it.
I went on a different trip. Same trip with like the same guide, but I was
But
a
we
little
were,
younger.
the thing is, and we had a great time, but we were 18. So, probably 18 or 17. But the thing is, over there, you can drink at 18. Or in the States, you obviously can't drink till you're 21. And so we were just a bunch of 18-year-old degenerates, getting drunk every night. But I so wish, or I would love to go back now. Or older me could go back because I would just appreciate it and remember it so much more. Because they took us to all kinds of cool things. We were going to castles and, we went on a Jack the Ripper tour. When you're that young, you just don't appreciate it like you should. And it's just part of being a human. But I would love to go now back to all those places, especially like Prague, Vienna. Like Prague is like this, just this old time city. It almost looks haunted. Like, they got all the Gothic building structures and whatnot. Very cool city. Prague is.
I've even found that doing the YouTube stuff I travel different than when I traveled before YouTube in terms of how I enjoy it. So I did a ton of traveling internationally before YouTube. I was like, the year before COVID, I went to South America for like 2 weeks and did like 16 flights and Machu Picchu and Easter Island and just a whole bunch of cool places. But I was more...
Who made those on Easter Island?
Who made the... Well, do you know the story?
I don't know.
So, well, at least what the legend is. So...
Giants?
No. Basically, slaves. So the story is that they had all these different tribes on the island. And they would have a yearly competition. And they would choose their best person. And it was this crazy race. And you would like jump off a cliff and you'd swim out to this rock and you would get this egg and you would swim back through the ocean and then it was this crazy, insane race. And they would have like 10 different tribes. And whoever won the race was in control of the island for the next year until the next race. And so then they could have anybody do whatever they needed. They were like the president, basically. And this one tribe won it several years in a row. And they were just jerks. and they just forced all the other tribes to basically build these.
Is that what they say?
That's the
locally?
legend. So there's a movie called Rapa Nui, and that's about that. That's the story. And it's a big Hollywood movie that totally bombed. Nobody went and watched it.
I never heard of it.
And I think maybe Tom Cruise was like an executive producer or something, but he wasn't in it. It's a pretty good movie. It's not bad if you ever find it. But that's what they tell. That's the story, and that's the legend of. And they show, and they basically there's not hardly any trees on the island because they cut all the trees down to try to help move these rocks. That's how they would move the rocks, by putting all the logs in rolls, and they would roll them along, and all that kind of stuff. So Easter Island was amazing. But what were we talking? Oh, I was just talking about I was saying that. So I did that stuff, which was cool, but the traveling now is different because I'm not going to like this place to go to the touristy thing. I'm doing the opposite. I'm like trying to figure out what nobody has talked about. And so you got to go to every dot on the map and find something that nobody, I didn't even know about that existed, so it just is a different way. And when you're documenting it, it's different. 'Cause I'm in a car and I'm like, the sun is over here, so I need to drive back around and turn around this way to get a picture of it because this is a bad glare. So you take way longer that way, and it makes a different way to explore than just, oh, there it is. I enjoy it. It's more enjoyable for me now that I've done it for a while.
That's cool. That's cool. When I went to Europe, we went to a lot of those similar places, but we also went to the Vatican. The Vatican was pretty sweet. The art in the Vatican, we went and saw the Sistine Chapel. All that stuff was pretty dang cool. You see all the popes are buried there. They even, we had a priest go with us that had some sort of connection, and we took what's called the Scavi tour, where you go under the Vatican into the catacombs, and you get up and you can allegedly see Peter's teeth. Yeah, pretty cool.
Interesting.
A lot of it was under construction, but yeah, apparently not many groups can take that Scavi tour, but we had an in with a priest that went with
the
us.
Pope.
Yeah, we had an in with the Pope.
Are you excited about the new Pope?
I don't know anything about him except he's from Chicago.
Right. He's like a White Sox fan.
Yeah, there's a video of him at one of the World Series games when the White Sox were in the World Series.
Yeah.
And what was that, 2005, 2006 probably?
I don't know. I'm a Reds fan, so I'm a long-suffering baseball fan right now. It's been a tough...
Hey, you might get your guy into the Hall of Fame now, though.
Pete. Yeah, I met Pete a few times growing up.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's where I went to all the games, and I went to spring training, and yeah, that was those guys. You'd meet them back then. This is the '80s where it was different. They would sign every autograph, and there was no social media. You would see those guys. They'd come to your town and do a signing at the bank because that was their sponsor. So it'd be a little town. They'd come. I remember Johnny Bench did that. Met Johnny Bench that way. So I have a hat with all their autographs.
Johnny Bench, he has a Wichita connection, doesn't he?
Yes, he was. They had the Johnny Bench Award. They don't do it anymore, I don't think, but they would have that award here, and it was the best catcher in college baseball. And he would come here every year for the Johnny Bench Award. Met him. Actually, they do not only that award, but they do like some Wichita Athletes of the Year. And we've had some of those on our track team. And so anytime we have one, we go. And so we met him a couple of times at that. I was like, yeah, I met you when I was 6. Russellville, Ohio. You remember that?
He's like, oh, yeah. That's right.
I had no idea.
You a Bengals fan?
Yes.
You are?
Yes, definitely. That's been kind of fun.
Yeah.
They were the most entertaining team last year.
Minus the first month. First month of the season, it's bad.
They were entertaining, losing all those games, 44-41. I mean, it was incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, their offense is explosive.
So if I really and truly, definitely, obviously root for them. But I learned a long time ago with them, it's entertainment. Don't get emotionally involved. And because I lived through the 90s, which was really bad. And then the Marvin Lewis years where they made the playoffs a bunch and they couldn't win the playoffs, and even when we thought we had the games won. So, but they're fun, and I'm always optimistic.
Pre-Mahomes, the Bengals and the Chiefs had a very similar time.
For sure.
The Chiefs were famous for making the playoffs and not winning a game.
Now in the 80s, you guys are too young, but in the 80s the Bengals were really good. They made 2 Super Bowls, lost one literally in the last minute.
Chris Collinsworth was on that team.
Correct. Yeah, Joe Montana to Jerry Rice. No, Joe Montana to John Taylor. Jerry Rice was on that team. And that was a heartbreaker because like 30 seconds. They lost in last 30 seconds.
Damn.
But even the last Super Bowl, they were in the Super Bowl recently. That came down to the very end too.
Yeah, they did make it.
Yep.
Yeah, they beat the Chiefs.
They beat our beloved Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, they kind of had the Chiefs number for a couple years, and
Yeah,
then it's been the other way lately. But
yeah,
we'll see. It's a new year.
Yeah, that was when Aaron Donald had that insane Super Bowl.
Yes. Yeah. Beckham got hurt, and Bengals had the lead late in the second half, and then they just couldn't. All those guys were so young. Chase was a rookie.
Cooper Kupp had a giant game too.
Yeah.
Aaron Donald's once in a lifetime type
He was
player.
awesome.
He's right up there with LT.
Yeah.
As the 2 best probably defenders ever in the NFL.
Yeah. It's hard to
Right,
measure defenders. I think it's just hard to even now it's hard to measure offensive players because of the the generations are different and the rules are different. Quarterbacks compared to one, but even defenders, I think it'd be like asking the offensive players who the best, like who would you fear? Who would be the hardest guy to block? I'm sure those guys would be at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron Donald was such a freak because he was an interior defensive lineman.
Right.
Yes.
He's causing havoc going through the guards and the center, which I'm sure there's been great. I know there's been great nose. I don't know if he's considered a nose tackle, but but he just stood off the screen and became pretty much the household name by being a defensive tackle, which they're never household
Really
names.
rare, yeah.
Right.
Usually it's the outside rushers.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Think about how good Chris Jones is. Chris Jones is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer, and there was a significant gap between Aaron Donald and Chris Jones.
Yeah,
For sure, yeah. Did you guys play football?
high school.
High school.
Yeah. My high school, so this is pretty interesting. My high school did not have a football team. I grew up in this southern Ohio, very rural area, basketball, I ran track, and just no team in our conference had football. This is really kind
How
of
many people went to your
Appalachia.
high school?
250, 300 or something like
That's
that.
not
And most of them a little smaller, but it was just kind of a weird deal that we didn't, very, Appalachia, kind of poor area. And so then I go to Kent State, which is historically probably the worst college football team in America. 5 years of me being a college student, we won 5 games. Last year they had maybe one of the worst seasons in history of college football, 0-12.
Wasn't Julian Edelman the quarterback?
Yeah, so I saw a whole bunch of really good players at Kent State, and they had spurts of averageness. But yeah, Edelman, James Harrison played for Kent State.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Antonio Gates was a basketball player at Kent State. We didn't
my
play
goodness.
football. Yeah. So, but then I come to Wichita State, and there's no football team.
Right, yeah. Wow.
No football team in high school. The worst football team where I went to college. No football team where I've worked for 20 years. But I do enjoy football. I really like football. It's Bengals, they've been the most successful team.
Yeah, but they've been good. They've been good these last couple. There was, them and the Bills and the Ravens and
Yeah.
the Chiefs are the big rivals there.
Yeah, they're relevant. So
Oh yeah,
we'll see if they can stop it.
you got a high floor with Burrow.
Yes, for sure.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Burrow. He's great on the mic. He just gets what it means to be a franchise QB.
Yeah. Oh, he always says the right things.
He's great on the mic.
He totally
great in the
does,
locker room.
yeah.
Good in the community. He just knows exactly what it means.
I work with a guy, he just retired actually, but he's a huge Chiefs fan. And when the Bengals were beating them those couple years, he was so mad. But he's like, I can't help but like Burrow, but I hate Burrow so much, but he can't help but like him when he says all the right stuff,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to have that guy. Luckily, we were 2-14, and so this is kind of funny. I'm in Florida, and my parents lived in Florida, and when they retired, and I went down. This was the year before the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow, and it was the last game of the season. It was the Dolphins versus the Bengals, and the Bengals were 2-13, and the Dolphins were 3-12, and so Burrow and Tua the next year, right, were
Yeah.
drafted by those two teams. The winner of that game gets the second pick. The loser gets the last pick. So I go to the game, and everybody's rooting, like all of the Cincinnati people are rooting to lose the game because Joe Burrow, they're wanting Joe Burrow, not Tua. And
he's an Ohio kid.
yeah. And so it's 35-19. The Dolphins are winning. It looks like this is, and it's about 2 minutes left. And Andy Dalton is the Bengals quarterback. And I'm in the upper deck. I got like a last minute ticket, but the place clears out because it's 16-point lead. And I end up going down all the way to the bottom. They're just letting people go walk down to the front row. Basically, there was 1,000 people left, and mostly it was Cincinnati people because all the Dolphins people had left, and the people that traveled from Cincinnati were still. They're what are they going to leave for? Bengals score a touchdown, 2-point conversion. It was like 30 seconds left, so now it's an 8-point game, and so everybody's kind of looking around at each other like they're not. This isn't going to happen. Onside kick. Bengals get it. Literally the next play, touchdown, 2-point conversion. They scored 16 points in the last 2 minutes, and now it's going to overtime.
I don't remember this
I
at
don't either.
all.
This is crazy, and no one remembers because no one was there.
Right.
And it's just so we're kind of celebrating because it's fun to see him do well, but you're also like, and then they miss a field goal in overtime that would have won it, and then the Dolphins make a field goal to win the game.
Wow.
And the Bengals get the first pick and got Joe Burrow. Yeah.
The butterfly effect.
Dolphins would have drafted him, I'm guessing, as the first pick.
Oh, yeah, he was the consensus number one overall that year.
Yeah, he was.
So
That was a COVID draft. That was when Goodell was calling out picks from his lazy boy in his basement.
yeah, they played that next year with nobody in the stands. That was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah. So anyways,
You have an NBA team, Cavs fan?
No. So Kent State is not far from Cleveland, and I saw. So LeBron was in high school when I was at Kent State, and I saw LeBron play half a dozen times in high school. So when he was in the 9th grade, like everybody there knew who he was. And in the 10th grade, me and a buddy who were big basketball fans, we were like, hey, let's go watch him play at the high school. Because it was in Akron. Kent is 8 miles away. We go, like, oh, we'll watch this kid. And Shaquille O'Neal walks into the gym. It's a, like, little...
What year was this?
Probably when Shaq was playing for the Cavs.
Early 2000s. And so they had a game...
So Shaq was probably playing for the Lakers.
Yeah, so they had a game in Cleveland, and he had come the day before or something like that. So he walks into this gym that sat about 500 people. But it was totally packed to the brim because of LeBron. And he was so impressive at that age. Like, it was incredibly impressive that not only was he a freak athletically, but he was so unselfish, and he was his basketball IQ. So then the next year, in 11th grade, they move all their games to the University of Akron arena that sat about 5,000 people. And they sold out Akron every week. And they drew better than Akron University did. And then his senior year, they only played big arenas his senior year. They were traveling the country playing in places like Intrust, And so we watched him like all through high school. And then I went up and saw him his rookie year play a couple times. And then I left. That was when I left Kent. Yeah, so I guess Cavs, but I don't have an NBA fan. And I've kind of I don't watch NBA much anymore. I loved it growing up. Like, I loved NBA growing up. Magic, Bird, Jordan, that was when I was a little kid. So that was awesome watching those guys.
How old were you when Jordan was ripping off like his last 3?
That was, his last 3? Yeah, that would have been when I was in college, something like that.
Wow. So you remember all that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dominique Wilkins was my guy. Dominique Wilkins from Atlanta Hawks. He was, I don't know if you know.
Why?
Dominique Wilkins. He was a freaky athletic guy. His dunks are the best dunks, in-game dunks. And I always kind of like guys that were like the next guy. So Jordan was easy to be everybody's favorite. So I always like the next guy.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But I like Jordan. He's awesome. That whole series that they did on Netflix was pretty cool.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was. It was. When you take your travels east, do you have interest in hitting up any of the Civil War towns?
I haven't thought about it a lot. So the history in the East is so much older than out here. And growing up in Ohio, like, I kind of had a sense of that history, but I don't have a great, like I said, I'm not a history expert. So, but the history in the East, the colonies, it's a little different, and it is interesting. And when I did a couple videos in Tennessee and Alabama this last year, and there's some interesting Civil War stuff there. But I didn't know about like the Civil War history here very much growing up in Ohio. And so the whole Kansas, Missouri, what do they call that? Bleeding Kansas stuff is really interesting because you don't really learn about that a ton when you're growing up in Ohio. So that's what I've been more trying to like learn about is that. But I'm sure if I go out that way, I'm definitely going to be.
Sure.
So where I grew up right along the Ohio River, in Ohio, but Kentucky is on the other side. And so the Underground Railroad was right there. And actually, the county I grew up in was like one of the main places that people would cross the river. And so I would, as a kid, you're talking about not appreciating stuff when you're younger. We would go to field trips to these places, these Underground Railroads, these Civil War sites. And you're just like, I'm glad we're not in school today. We're just going to go down to Ripley, Ohio and check out whatever this is that we don't really care about. And so, and then I went away to college and then I moved here. So I've really never explored those areas as an adult, So I'm excited. I want to go back and do a total exploration of my county that I grew up in, which has a ton of Civil War kind of history that I'm kind of aware of, and I went to, but I don't remember as a 6-year-old, in first grade going on a field trip.
Sure.
So yeah, that the Civil War stuff is pretty fascinating out there.
Yeah, when you said you're going to Pennsylvania, that's what I thought of, because I've got a book up there about Gettysburg.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a fantastic read, and what an event that was.
I would probably go there. I'm not sure I'd make a video about it because it's just like such a well-known thing that I was like, I feel Like couldn't do it justice. There's so many better videos that I could make. I would try to find something, like find a town that had a battle that is lesser known, but maybe talk about. So I did that with in Missouri. There's a Pilot Knob, Missouri, and I went there and they had some Civil War stuff happen there, and I didn't even know because I was just going to go visit this town. And I met this museum director. He gives me like a whole history of this battle that happened there, and you can walk out to where it happened. They still have all this stuff set up. So that was awesome because there wasn't really a video about that on YouTube. And that's been a real popular video that I've had out there. So that's the kind of stuff I would totally go to Gettysburg. In fact, I think I've been there before, but like I can't remember. It's been so long ago. Get old and you forget.
That's a great idea, though, because you're right. Gettysburg is so saturated with content. You should go to, and I think I said this on one of our podcasts, or maybe we were just shooting the shit. But go to Louisiana or Mississippi or Arkansas or Tennessee or Missouri and find some professor there that's just a nut about it, and then you can get a real intimate experience with that versus going to Gettysburg or one of the other big sites that people have heard of and seen a million times.
So I'm in Tennessee this year and I'm driving back. So we had a conference meet in Birmingham, Alabama, and I rented a car and drove back because we had like a couple of days. And I'm just exploring Tennessee ghost towns. And I found like 3, and I'm like at the end of the day, and on Google Maps, there's a cemetery, and I'm like, I'll go check out this cemetery. But it's down a dead-end road, and and there's a guy a farmer walking down the road, and I'm like, hey, is there a cemetery? I just like checking out old cemeteries. Is there a cemetery down? He's like, oh, yeah, go down here and turn left. There's a gate. Go through the gate. There's cows, but don't worry about them, So I go up, find the cemetery, and then he's like, but if you're interested in that stuff, here's 2 other ones in the area that people don't know about. So I go to the one, it's cool, it's all just kind of grown over, but really old. And then I go to this other one, and it's on like a farmer's property. But this guy said, it's fine, don't worry about it. People go to it all the time, and because it's like this historical area. So I go up there, and I'm looking at this old guy. He's got to be 75, 80 years old. He rolls up in the truck and he's like, interested in the cemetery, I see, real Southern guy. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's a Mormon cemetery. And I'm like, Mormon? You're in Tennessee? Were there a bunch of more? He's like, no, these are the only ones. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, they came here. They tried to start a community. The people here in the 18 whatevers didn't want them there. And they took him to the county line and they killed him. And then this is where they buried him. And so Mormons come there regularly to have some sort of a remembrance or whatever. And I go, why'd they kill him? He goes, because they's Mormons. It was like,
wow.
So you talk about like a history project. This is a guy that like owned this farm probably for his family for generations. And he was like, some president crossed the river right here, and this is where he, and this is this whole historical place. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's why they killed him. They didn't like people that were different, right. At that time of the, in that part of Tennessee, And I'm not saying that guy was like that, but he knew why, It's like out here, you kind of take that for, well, you're actually, you're like, oh, wow, that history happened right here. And it's fascinating. It's certainly, there's people that maybe want to ignore that happened, or they have an opinion on it. I don't have an opinion on it. Like, that happened. It's interesting. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. I just did a video. I've been doing like a lot of museums lately. And I was in College Station, Texas for a track meet last week, and I did George H.W. Bush Library, Presidential Library and Museum, which those presidential libraries are really cool. And I'd start the video, go, hey, look, I'm not political. This is just interesting history. So from his birth to when he passed away, that's some interesting things happened in our country. And that's what I'm interested in. I could care less what political party they are, and I would go to his or whoever's and be just as curious. And the same way with like learning history about different parts of the country, it's history. It's really interesting. Some of it's good, some of it's awful. But it's interesting that it happened, and that's where it happened right there, in that cemetery.
Man, the Mormons, they really had to earn it to survive. God.
Yeah, they basically followed the Oregon Trail, but just a little bit off of the Oregon Trail because they couldn't really want to go the same places, the same trail. So the Mormon Trail goes almost the same way, but they would be like on the other side of the river, and then where the Oregon Trail was to avoid some of the same places. Yeah.
Interesting. I think we talked about this on a previous one, but I think Joseph Smith got murdered somewhere in Illinois, and then they fled to Salt Lake.
Yeah, and Missouri is a big deal for the more like isn't the what town? Let's look it up. In Missouri, there's a town in Missouri that's like the Mormon. I know this because I have a girl that I coach that's from that area. So
I never knew Missouri had a significance.
It's near Kansas City. It's not too far from Kansas City. Yeah, it's like their Independence. Yeah, basically near there. It's not too far from there.
Several Missouri towns hold significance in the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Independence, Missouri was declared a city of Zion and a gathering place for Latter-day Saints. Far West Missouri is recognized as a historic site, with the temple site being owned and maintained by the LDS Church.
I did a video about Far West, so that's not too far from Kansas City. I went there, and they have a little historic area, place where Joseph Smith was captured. They have a little place there. And then they have a little general store, and I go there, and the guy, I think, was trying to convince me to become a Mormon. He wouldn't let me go. he had about 6 books he was trying to sell me. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then they have these carts when they did their trail. They put on, instead of wagons, they did stuff on hand carts. So
really?
If you look up Mormon hand carts, that's how they traveled. That's how they carried everything. Yeah, they're a little bit different. Great. I can't imagine, how they did all that stuff. There's they kind of reenacted some of that in the 1883 show. Have you guys seen that?
I haven't seen that.
I haven't either.
They put together different trails, but Oregon Trail is kind of part of it. And they did a good job about how difficult it was and, the struggles, especially some of the immigrants had that maybe didn't even speak English. They didn't even know what it meant to do a wagon train. And, so it's really good. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend it.
That's another thing that gets slept on about the people that went west is a lot of these people were true immigrants to America that couldn't even speak English, and they're going west.
Yeah.
It's desperate. It's just pure desperation.
Yeah, there's your Mormon hand carts.
Man, who would draw the short stick and have to carry that?
That's what they put their supplies on. They went from Kansas City to Salt Lake.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. There's somebody. So when I did the Oregon Trail, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is unique." There was a dude doing that. He did the whole thing with one of the carts himself, like walking, and he was documenting it on a website or something. I'm lazy. This guy's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it in 2 weeks, and it took him like a year or whatever.
That makes the dude who just liquidated his 401k and sailed from somewhere on the west coast to Hawaii. That makes that look like chump change.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing what he did there makes the guy sailing look like a pansy.
I've got a story about a guy sailing like that I met in New Zealand. So I'm in New Zealand. This was before YouTube, and I was getting some pizza or something, and I was in this really tiny town. So there's like 2 restaurants, and it was in what did I say? New Zealand?
Yeah.
Sorry, it was Fiji. I went to New Zealand, but then I went to Fiji after that. A really small little rural place. And I'm sitting there kind of on the little outside patio, and a dude in a boat sails up, and he's getting out. And he's an old guy. He's probably like in his 60s. And I'm getting to be about that, I shouldn't say. And he comes in, and he's getting some food. He's getting some supplies. There's a little store there. And he's the only white guy I'd seen in a while, And I'm like, hey, And I start talking to him, and he's like, I haven't really talked in a while. I haven't spoke to anybody in a while because he'd been on his boat for a long time. And I go, where are you from? He's like, I'm from Nebraska. And he came in on a boat to Fiji. And I'm like, he's like got real estate or something, and so he's basically retired, and his family helps run his real estate. I go, and this was in 2018, and I said, when did you set sail? He goes, 2005. Yeah,
Wow.
2005, and he'd been all kinds of places, and I go, where are you going next? He goes, well, if I go that way, it goes to New Zealand, and if I go that way, it goes to where, Japan, or I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, I haven't decided yet. And he was literally getting his supplies and getting ready to get back in his boat. So you talk about having a plan,
Yeah.
going somewhere.
What a fascinating way to live.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, who did this guy murder?
Yeah.
He's 13 years on a boat
Yeah.
in the South Pacific. So yeah, you meet some interesting people out there.
I can imagine.
I believe it.
You have a Kansas Tornado Chaser shirt. I saw that in Lincoln County. Was that the video where you?
I think so.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about close calls.
I have never seen a tornado in person. It's crazy, and I feel like I've been really close. I just bought this as a joke because I saw it in, I don't know where I saw it, store, and but I've been to some really bad weather, and I've been to places that had been hit tornado. Like I went through Moore, Oklahoma, the day after that happened, and Moore. That was a huge one, and then I went through Greensburg like the next day after that happened. Just randomly happened to be going to New Mexico or something, and it's crazy. But yeah, I've never seen one. Even the Andover one that happened, we had kids on the team that have videos of it, and I'm like, I didn't see it. So, nothing really. I would say I was never anything too close. That one on the Lincoln County one, I had the whole time I was like local weather or local channel on the radio, had my phone, had you could see it where it was at, and it wasn't like rapidly moving, so I felt pretty comfortable. Where I was at, just inching along and staying ahead of it. And it was kind of a fun day because you could kind of predict it wasn't anything going to be super dangerous where I was at. But then I got done. I'm like, okay, I think it's time to head out. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm guessing I'll probably run into something at some point. But I try to, if it's going to be a bad day, I just don't go out, But that was a day where it was like I had 2 days. This is my time. So, but even if it's raining, that's not a good thing to try to go explore back roads.
Yeah.
And especially with a drone. Like, you don't want to fly the drone in the rain. So today I went out to Butler County this morning and did some stuff, but I was kind of concerned about what the roads were going to be like because they had all the flooding recently from that Tuesday. But everything was pretty good. There were some places they had trees over and you couldn't go through, but yeah, if it was like that day, Tuesday, I would have not. Certainly, I'm not going to explore today. I'm going to take the day off and sit at home and edit for 8 hours.
Right. Sure. Yeah, your drone works pretty good, at least from somebody that doesn't know anything about it. Like I watched that video of when you went to Little Jerusalem and something about
all
pyramid.
the different monument rocks and little pyramids.
I had no idea, and I love Kansas and that sort of stuff, but I had no idea there were rock formations out there.
They're
the
awesome.
one that's like a full Badlands.
Yeah.
What's that one
Little
called?
Jerusalem.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah,
that's Little Jerusalem.
unbelievable.
There you go.
Unbelievable that that's in Kansas.
Yep. Yeah, that's people think of like Colorado. It's not that far from Colorado, but certainly you get out to western Kansas, you're at about 4,000 feet altitude out there, 4,000 feet.
Really?
So yeah. The highest point in Kansas is over 4,000 feet. But yeah, that was a fun day. That was.
But the weird thing about those is the rest of it's just prairie, and then you got that.
Yeah, that's yeah. There you go.
Yeah, cool.
It's funny though, like that's a video. If you're interested in like the YouTube kind of analytics side, that was a video that I did, and I thought this is going to be a really good video. This is going to be interesting because I'm going to do all these different unique geological places in one video. It's like Kansas is unique Kansas, and nobody watched it. It was like a weird deal, but then like over time it had legs and people started watching it. But sometimes a video will be really good at first and be interesting, and then sometimes it just takes a year. It might be a year before people start watching it.
What do you think the trick is?
The thumbnail is really important. Especially for stuff like mine, where you're gonna try to get So the way YouTube works. So you have I'm nearing 50,000 subscribers. So what
Nice.
happens is the people that are like have notifications on, people that are most significant followers to you, the video gets pushed to them immediately. So 7:00 in the morning is when I always release the video. So you're going to get notified or whatever, or you go to YouTube, it's going to pop up first if you're one of those people. And so a certain percentage of those people click on that video. And if it's a good percentage, it'll push it out to the next level of people who are maybe somewhat interested in watch some of your videos, right? And then it kind of keeps going and going and going. And then if just a lot of people are clicking on it, that's how a video kind of catches value, because YouTube suggests it. When you go on YouTube, you're just looking at stuff they're suggesting you, and YouTube wants to make money, so they're going to try to suggest stuff that they think you want to click on. And if that first hour, the people that are the most loyal people aren't clicking on the video, YouTube's not going to push it out to the next group, hardly at all. But what happens is sometimes somebody finds that video, maybe they share it on Facebook, maybe they share it like 6 months later. This happened to me before. And then all of a sudden it finds a different demographic or a geographic area that has no idea that video exists. And then it starts going, and YouTube figures out, okay, well, these are the people I need to share this with. And then that video will take off. And then sometimes the video never takes off, and so the thumbnail is important because I really hate clickbait type stuff. So it's really accurate what I put. And then the title. So I want people that are interested in what I'm, putting out there to know that this is going to be what they know, like this is accurate. I'm going to watch a video that whatever the picture is and whatever it says. But you want it to make it really interesting. So the one that I put out today, so if you pull up my channel, the one that I put out today, it was a little different kind of video. And I went to a bunch of oddity, like roadside attractions type stuff. And I don't do videos like that very often. So I'm like, let's try to come up with a thumbnail that just is interesting looking. And it's a truck. So there it is right there, Weird Oklahoma. So that's the video today. And I thought, well, is that... So I have a buddy that I bounce these ideas off of. And so should we name it Weird? Should we name it Roadside Attractions? Should we name it Unusual? So we just thought Weird Oklahoma. And there's an upside down truck. That's kind of people that's more likely to click on than just a normal thing that just says exploring the oddities of Oklahoma. So and then just the video is just me kind of going up and down through Oklahoma looking at weird stuff, basically, or just not like traditionally historic towns or something. It's just like a road trip. You would say, hey, let's go to see a bunch of unusual things today. So the trick of it is a good thumbnail. You want to have a good video, obviously, and give the people that subscribe to you kind of what they want. The problem I have is I like to do different stuff. And so I did that video, then there'll be a video about the George Bush Museum. And people maybe don't like both of those things,
right.
But to the point now where there's enough people that at least watch everything, or like that are really good fans. So you have a core. At the worst, you're going to have this kind of amount of people watching. And then if a video is real popular, then it'll get out there, more likely to get out there. So there's more people sharing it and looking at it. So it's the whole YouTube, the business of YouTube is very fascinating. Keep learning. Even I did an interview with a guy named Joe. From Joe and Nick's road trip, they got 500,000 or 600,000 subscribers. And he's like, yeah, once you figure out YouTube, you realize you don't have it figured out. So, he's like, I did this whole series of 7 videos. I edited it for months, and I thought this was going to be this thing, and nobody cares. Yeah. And that is true. But the thing is, like, if you can kind of you can kind of go, man, why didn't anybody watch this? Well, there's a reason. There's some reason why they didn't watch it. And so you don't want to take it personally. You're just like, okay, what could I do different to make it better? And so it's good to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. Hey, why do you think this isn't doing good? Is there some reason? Like, when you do the video, you're kind of inside of it. You don't really see it the same way that somebody with fresh eyes. So I always send it to friends. I say, hey, if you don't like something, tell me, because I want to know. And it doesn't mean I'll change it. Maybe I still want to do what I want to do, but I am open-minded enough to be aware. And so I'm a little bit more strategic that way, I guess, than I
Are
used to
you
be.
familiar with it enough where when you do a video, you now know, okay, this one might hit more. So you kind of know.
Yeah, usually. And it isn't always that case, but certainly I can say I think this one's going to. And usually I try to save those videos for Sunday. So I do videos on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday now. 3 videos a week. And then I have a member section too, which is new this year. So I actually do 4 videos a week. But the Sunday video, more people watch YouTube on the weekend. And for me, a lot more on Sunday than like on a Tuesday. So Sunday is usually what I think is going to be the most popular video. And that just gives more a chance for it to go viral or whatever you might say. Thursday is a little more popular than Tuesday. People, just when the habits. So Tuesday is always my what I think is going to be the least popular of these 3 videos. Also, I make the Sunday video longer as well if I can. It's usually more of a road trip, small, ghost towns, and 20 minutes long or something like that. Tuesday might be 6-minute long little tour of something, or an interview that I know is just I probably I want to do this interview, but with some person that nobody knows about, and
Us. Right.
well, not this interview, but if I was doing something else,
Except for mom.
Yeah.
So so you learn, and at first I had no clue about any of that stuff, but there are so many analytics YouTube when you have all that stuff. I don't know if you guys look at that stuff much. There's so many analytics behind it. It's crazy. Every video has every demographic breakdown you can imagine. It's insane.
We're about as rookie gets when it comes to YouTube. So
once you start growing, you'll start looking at that stuff, and I try not to let myself be controlled by those numbers, because I'm like, I want to do what I want to do, but you also can learn from it, and if it can work together, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll pay attention to this. I was in New Mexico over the holiday break, Christmas break, and it did a whole video along the wall. It was like the road that goes nearest the wall in New Mexico. And there was a whole bunch of cool little towns, but I thought, what would be a good thumbnail? And so I had a drone shot of the wall, and it was just the wall and barren spaces on both sides of it. And I go, well, I think that could be interesting. And a guy responded like, what AI program did you use to make this thumbnail? Because there's a lot of people doing that kind of stuff now. I'm like, no, that's the actual drone picture of this wall. And that video did really, really well. Because usually, for me, the videos that are popular are Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska, like stuff around here. If I go east, those videos will take a long time before they're popular, because there's no one in Pennsylvania watching my video. Like, there's a few, but there's very few compared to Kansas. So if I just put a North Carolina video, which I did last week, very few people watched it compared to a regular video in Kansas. So for me, I have to think about sprinkling those videos in as I go, if that makes sense. Like, maybe I throw that on a Thursday because I know on Sunday this video is going to be more popular. But this Thursday video, it might take 6 months before it finds. And then if I do a lot more videos in Pennsylvania and New York and those places, eventually those people will find it. And that's good because,
You kind of think of those as like an investment. Like you're putting it out there, and then, now it's out there.
Exactly.
I'll go back to Kansas, keep doing what I'm doing, but one day this hopefully will pay off.
So here's an example. So I'm going to Oregon this next week with our track team for the NCAA championships. And I've been to Oregon enough for track meets and do the Oregon Trail that I think I have about 10 or 12 videos from Oregon. But they're not very popular. I don't have very many people watch from Oregon. I do have a few. And so, but the most popular videos I do are these ones called 10 Smallest Towns. And so,
I'm familiar.
And I've done 10 of those. So, but what I usually do is I want to make sure, because I'm getting into states now that I don't have that many fans from, I guess you would say, because I've done all the ones around us. So, but I've done now about 10 videos in Oregon. So next week I've got this 3-day break in the middle of 2 different track meets I'm out there for. So I'm going to do the 10 smallest towns in Oregon. But now I have 10 videos that when that video gets popular, there's 10 other videos that people from Oregon will find that they didn't even know existed. Ghost towns, museums, or stuff like that. And so for me, that's the strategy. Mm-hmm. If I went to North Dakota, which I don't have much from, and the first video I did was the 10 smallest towns in North Dakota, that's the only one those people are going to watch. They're not going to watch Kansas and all this kind of stuff. But if I have 8 videos from North Dakota before that, and then I put that out there. Now they're going to watch these other 8 videos. So there's some, that's for me, that's how the channel grows. Yeah.
Cool.
Because those videos are the core of the channel that get the most views.
You just learned that through experience.
Yeah, for sure. I learned that
because you're steps ahead. I mean, you're thinking ahead of right now.
For sure. Yeah, because I've thought, well, I'd like to do all 50 states. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
And if that was all I did, because if I had time, I don't have time to do that. Those videos take a while to make. That would be good, because then like it's people that are interested in that type of video, but mostly it's people that are interested in their geographic region for me. And so you have to have multiple of those videos out there. And it took me a while to figure that out, but that's certainly a strategy. So when I go to the East this year, I probably won't do any of the 10 smallest towns videos, except for maybe Ohio, because I've done some already there. The other ones I'm just going to lay foundation, right? I have a US 50 trip, so that's a way to get people that might be interested in US 50, start watching something about Illinois and Indiana. And then the next time I go that way, maybe I'll do a couple of those videos, So it's strategy. It's not like I'm sitting there thinking about it all the time, but I have figured out some of that in terms of how to grow the channel.
Yeah. I mean, that's like with us, like we're not thinking that right now.
No.
I wasn't thinking that for a long time. The first of those videos I did was Kansas. And I think I did it about a year and a half into the channel. So, and I just did it because I'd always wanted to do it. That was an idea I'd had, and that video did good. And then I just was watching the analytics and going, oh, they're watching that video, but now they're watching this ghost town video about Kansas. And I never even thought that would be a thing of how to connect those people. And then I was like, okay, what's the next one? Oklahoma. I got a bunch of Oklahoma videos already. I'll do this. And then the same thing happened.
Wow.
So it was just kind of by luck, paying attention to the numbers,
Yeah. Just getting enough out there, getting enough content out there for that to even be a possibility.
So then when you build like an audience in a certain state, like let's say Texas, because I've had some videos, anything I do in Texas now will have a certain amount of views. Pretty much anything that I do down there, except the George Bush Museum, maybe not, because that's totally different. It's not really Texas. It's just like a museum. But if I do any kind of small town stuff there, it'll do well. Yeah. So the strategy is you just grow little by little, but it just takes a lot of time. And you got to be patient. It took me 14 or 15 months to get to 1,000 subscribers, and that was like 70 videos. So 1,000 subscribers is when you get monetized, and so that was a year and a half almost, And now you get I get 1,000 subscribers in 2 weeks, and it's just grinding it for hundreds and hundreds of videos. And if you like doing it, it's cool, but you got to look at it. You don't look at it as like as a job or anything. It's like, I want to do this. This is fun, challenging, rewarding.
Yep.
And then, okay, get a little bit of money. This is cool, And then maybe someday it'll be more. Yeah,
it shows how much staying disciplined and being consistent matters.
Yeah, I got a crazy schedule.
I'm sure you do.
The track season, it really is crazy. April and May are just insane for me. But it'll calm down here pretty soon. So the summer opens up for me, and then I'll just sail. I'll get out on the road, and
nice.
It's really exciting to think about. The track, and we've not talked about track much, but that's been like my whole life. So I'm super into track and field, but I don't talk about it that much on this stuff. But the NCAA championships in Oregon, this is a huge thing. You can turn on ESPN on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's the meet I'm at, and our kids are competing in, and this is a big deal. And Division I athletics, this is the highest level of it. And tons of those athletes that are competing again will be Olympians from their countries. And so super focused on that. I'm not, people kind of, it's two lives. It's like two, it's like you have a wife and a mistress, at the same time. And sometimes they switch, but then when the summer comes, I certainly do the track. Everybody takes a break from track. The kids need to take a break from me. I need to take a break from them. And let's go on the road for a month and then film a whole bunch of stuff and stockpile a bunch of stuff and get back to Wichita and then edit for a couple months, and here and there do stuff. But that's exciting for me to think about, like, what am I going to do in Maine, when I get there?
What events do you coach?
Yeah.
Sprints and hurdles.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was a sprinter back in the day.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah, you had some blazing times.
I saw that.
No, it was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how well you guys know track times, but
I actually had a buddy who was really fast and did track, and he is the fastest guy that I personally know, and he was my age, so we went through. And your times did beat him.
Nice.
They were close, but you did, and I was like, because I was just trying to, because I read that for you, and I was trying to get a perspective because I don't know it.
Right.
And so I texted him, and his times were slower than you. I was like, damn, this guy.
The funny
fast.
thing is, like, when you get to my age, and all of our coaches, we've been together a long time. Wichita State, we're a little bit older. The kids have no idea that you even did track. They don't really care that much. And I go, hey, you ran 21.4, good. A couple more tenths, you'll be as fast as I was in college. And they're excited. They're like,
talking about lighting
you ran
fire.
21.2. So it's always. I enjoy coaching kids that run faster than me. That I feel like at that point they're getting pretty good.
Sure, sure.
But we have Oregon will be fun.
Do we have any superstars?
We have some really good kids. So just making it to the NCAA championship finals is a huge deal. There's only 24 kids in each event. And so we made a relay, and this relay is the first time in 50 years Wichita State has had a 4x4 relay.
Oh,
and 3 of the guys are under sophomores, and we actually have a guy redshirting that I think will be just as good as these guys for next year. So that's pretty cool. But then all 3 of those guys also made it in individual events. One guy's I think he's 7th in the country right now. It just had a huge improvement from one year to the next. So it's just fun to see that. I mean, we can start talking about college athletics, the craziness of college athletics, but you get to that level, and even in track and field, it's wild with all the NIL stuff.
I was going to ask you that.
It's, Wichita State basketball is a whole nother world with that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of money being paid to track and field athletes at places like USC and Texas and Florida and Oregon, and we're in the same division competing at the same meet in the same races, but it's a totally different planet. And even in track and field. I feel bad for Paul Mills. It's a really difficult deal. Good guy. I think he's coached. I mean, guys got better last year. But, man, every year it's like new team.
Yeah, we've had Shocker season tickets our entire lives. Our family has. And, it's just a completely different. I think you may have better insight on this. I think at the beginning of when NIL started, I think WSU had no NIL.
Correct. They were late to the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the previous AD dropped the ball on that.
Yeah, it was tough because here's the problem, and I know him. I was there. I mean, I was at Wichita State. So the problem is when that stuff was happening, it was the Wild West, and it actually kind of still is the Wild West. But there were like, hey, here are the rules. These are the rules, and the teams that were ahead of the game were actually breaking the rules. And so you have teams like Wichita State, we're like, well, we can't do that. That's against the rules. Well, what about Tennessee or what about Alabama? These guys, they're like, well, they can see where this is going. And so they're going to go ahead and break the rules because they know there's not going to be a punishment for it, And so that's what I think happened at Wichita State was that we were trying to do things right. I know the compliance guy. He's a good friend of mine. And he's like, yeah, this is what they are doing is illegal at that school, And so, that was... We got behind, but it's kind of been a perfect storm with COVID and Greg Marshall and just the coaching changes, NIL and all that stuff. But they did good last year. Paul Mills is a great guy. I think he's a really good coach. So hopefully we can get it going and be competitive in our league. I think that right now is the realistic thing. Like let's try to get to the NCAA tournament, and you never know what happens there.
Yeah, he'll have a brand new team next year. So
the interesting thing I heard him talking about in his press conference was how he's talking to a lot of NBA coaches now because they deal with roster turnover so much, and they don't have very much time to practice before the season starts. So how they're going to be practicing earlier. Like in the summer, usually you're conditioning and you're lifting weights and you're kind of working on your skills, but now they're going to be trying to figure out their team chemistry so much earlier because it's all a bunch of new guys again. Every year is kind of almost like that. Right. Yeah. So he's trying to adjust to it the best that he can.
I mean, we're rooting for him. It's just, man.
It's tough.
He's got to pull a rabbit out of his hat.
Yeah. I think it's hard because people here in Wichita, the expectations are so high, and so the years of all those NCAA tournament, like when I come from a different school, so I knew when that was happening, like, guys, this is special. Wichita State this is a unique, special thing. Guys like Ron Baker and Fred Van, this is a unique thing is so like appreciate it right now. And to people, I don't know how much they appreciated it at the time, but appreciate it now. And but yeah, so it's tough. And to me, I think, okay, we're in the American Conference. Let's be competitive in our conference. And if we can get to the NCAA tournament, we can win our conference. You know, they have a lot of resources at Wichita State compared to our conference, and it's hard to compare us to, I don't know, who would be the top. Kentucky. You know, back in the day, it was a little bit different. We could play Kentucky, and there was a difference, but now the difference is they got millionaires over there on their team.
Yeah, well, look at the regular season game this past year against Florida. Yeah. I don't know if you followed WSU basketball like religiously.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean I remember it was like an 8.5 point spread. We were like plus 8.5.
We were feeling good about ourselves.
Yeah, because we had just beaten Minnesota.
Yeah.
But we just got demolished. Yeah. And it really was just
they could have beat us.
We played bad, they played good, and so it was all kind of a combination of all that stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were, because we had a kid on our team, this Florida guy, and I remember going, "Hey man, we're gonna give you guys a good game." He was texting me, "Hey dude, look at the score." But yeah, it's tough. It's like that for us too in track and field, just in a different way. But it's we got some great kids that are gonna be All-Americans, and so there's the whole college athletics thing is pretty wild right now. I hope that it gets sorted out and there's some kind of normalization at some point, and that it's just nobody knows. Next year the rules feel like they're going to be different from one year to the next.
Just the Wild West.
Yes, that's what it feels like right now.
No law and order in it.
When a kid can play for a different team every year, you know, It's just, I can't imagine being a football coach or a basketball coach. Even baseball. Baseball is really crazy too. Just how that
WSU
happens.
had one of their best pitchers picked off by some SEC school.
Yeah.
Like the year before this past year.
Right. Yeah.
They had one of their best hitters, I think, just jump in the portal too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fortunately for us, we don't deal with that as much. We do have we were just at the NCAA preliminaries, and you see SEC coaches going right up to kids from schools in our conference, and it's like, that's not legal, but there's no repercussions.
There's no enforcement.
You're correct. Yeah. So you just got to build good relationships, and luckily we got good kids here.
Good.
That's about all you can really do, and then just let the chips roll how they land.
Yeah, you don't ever want it to feel like this is transactional, you know, because you really do build relationships with these kids, but more increasingly, an increasing rate that the kids are going to leave, and that's just becomes the culture. And our culture in track isn't like it is in basketball, but probably eventually someday it will be. And so as a coach, you have to you gotta sleep at night still. You gotta, we're gonna do everything we can, and if something happens, something happens. So we've had a few kids transfer, but not too many.
Do you feel like you're constantly recruiting, even the current players? I feel like you have to continue to recruit them.
Kind of. Like ours is a little bit different. But yeah, I would say it's different. There's the there's the high school kids, there's the other transfers, and then there's kids on your team. So you're kind of recruiting them in three different ways, and you want them to make sure you know why it's unique, that why Wichita State is unique, and we have to do that because we don't have what maybe this school has, but we have something that's unique and why it's special to be here.
Gotcha. Interesting time to be a college coach.
It is. Yeah, it's a lot different than when I started coaching 27 years ago.
For sure.
Gotcha. Well, we need to take one more. All right, we're back.
One thing I wanted to ask you was Indian reservations. Have you spent time? Do you have to get permission? Like, how does that all work to be able to go on, if you have to go onto their land and do your thing?
It's interesting. So being so close to Oklahoma, Oklahoma is Indian territory. And so there's so many different reservations, and Kansas has some too. And I didn't know anything about that stuff when I was out here. So I would maybe go to somewhere and I have no clue about that. Generally you can drive through places, that's not an issue. But if you wanted to explore kind of deep into some places, you certainly want to get permission. there's some places they don't want you to go. So example is, so have you guys seen the movie Killers of the Flower Moon?
No, but I saw your video on it.
Okay, so there's a town there called Gray Horse, and that's kind of the central part of that area and on a reservation. And so I go there. It's basically a ghost town. There are some people living there, but it's also where they have their yearly rituals and celebrations. They have this giant area that they do their dances and they do all this stuff. And I'm kind of just walking around the town. There's dogs following me, and there's nothing, nobody around. And then I did see a guy, and I walked over to him and I said, "Hey, am I allowed to walk around and explore?" And he's like, "Yeah," but he told me what I couldn't do. And so it was there's all these chairs that go around this roundhouse place, and if they have a family name on it, you can't sit in it, and you can't go inside the circle. But you can film it, you can walk around, So it's every place is a different, is different. But usually, if you're respectful, they're gonna treat you. They understand you probably don't know every ritual. And I would put a video out, and then there would be people comment and go, "Did you get permission to do this?" And then I would try to respond if I had time or something, and explain, "Yes, I talked to this guy. He said this," but every place is different, and you just don't know. So just being respectful, and but it's fascinating, especially that Killers of the Flower Moon deal, when you learn the history of what happened there, and then you start visiting all these towns that are in the book, if you read the book or just watch the movie, and it's man, this is kind of wild to think about what was going on here. So I was just telling Kurt, my buddy, who I do a lot of this stuff, talk about this with, I was I'm a little bit nervous isn't the right word, but maybe just reserved in how much I try to talk about it in my videos, because I just don't have a ton of Native American history knowledge about all these places. There's so many of them that it gets kind of confusing. So it makes me reluctant to go and just try to find a place and get real deep and talk about it, if that makes sense. Where was I at? I was in Oklahoma just a couple weeks ago, where I was doing a video about it, and I was yeah, I'm going to visit this place, but man, I got to be careful. So what I do is I just kind of get general about it. I'm this is what I know for sure, and then I welcome people to put comments "Hey, I don't know as much about this. Put something in the comments if you know more about this town." Oh, I know what it was. I was going up through Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and that's the Cherokee Nation. And then I just randomly found the Cherokee History Museum, and it was closed, but I'm just kind of going all through it and finding all of this history. But as I'm there, I have no idea about their history. So I decided I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to film it. I'm going to go home and narrate it. I'm going to go back and learn about it, and then but I got a bunch of footage. So I got to piece that together different than standing out in the middle of the road talking about, well, this is this and this is this, So yeah, and every one of them a little bit different. And then you have the towns that are maybe in Cherokee Nation, but they're not a reservation, but they have all this Indian history within it, So it's every one of them's different. But usually it's just being respectful. Usually you drive through. For sure you can drive through them. They're public roads, And if they don't want you to go there, there'll be a sign telling you don't go there,
Right.
Yeah. So, but certainly being respectful.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I feel there could be a lot of trapdoor. You just got to be respectful.
For sure.
People will be on you like crazy if
Yeah.
you just make one, just an innocent mistake.
So here's one. If you watch the Oregon Trail video from, I think it's one of the ones from Idaho. So I'm following the Oregon Trail as close as I can, and it took me in some real back road areas. And I get to a part, and it was a reservation. I want to say I can't remember what the name of the reservation was, but there's a sign there, and it says, "Beginning of this reservation, don't enter," or whatever. And I'm out there. I got one bar on my phone, and I'm this is where the Oregon Trail goes. It goes right through here. This is the road. I got the map, and I know exactly where it goes. And I'm well, maybe I'll look up the reservation on the internet and see if I can call them. I'll call him right now. And so I'm calling him. There's no answer. So, oh yeah, Fort Hall. There it is. So, and there's my pen probably saying where I was. So I'm standing there and no answer. And I'm like, dang. And then I see a truck that's coming from inside the reservation. And I flag him down. It was a farmer. And I go, hey, can I go through here? Can I? It says no. He's like, yes, the road is public. No problem. If anybody stops you, just tell them you're passing through and you're following the Oregon Trail or whatever. He was like, it's no problem at all. So I'm like, okay, that makes me feel better. So I'm driving, and then it gets into some unbelievable, like, bad road. But I'm following it, and I've got Grand Cherokee or whatever, and I'm like, I'm going wherever this thing takes me, and if I get stuck, I'm really in trouble out here. And then I get to a little better road, and here comes a truck flagging me down, like wondering what I'm doing. And it was Native Americans. And I go, well, you won't believe this, but I'm trying to follow the Oregon Trail, and I know it goes right through there. And they thought it was the coolest thing. They just thought it was awesome,
Wow.
And they go, oh, that's awesome. Because I wasn't stopping and wandering around in the middle of stuff. I was just in my car. And so they thought that was really neat that I was going through there. And I was like, yeah, and I talked to this farmer. And so, just being respectful. But they were probably wondering what the heck, there hadn't been a guy on that road in a while.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
That
great.
is.
Is there any hidden gems that you found that you think people should go to? Anything that sticks
Oh, there's
out?
so many hidden gems.
I'm sure there is. Is there anything that's
Oh,
top of the
man.
mind?
Like where?
In Kansas.
Well, I did get, so I did a video around Christmas or right after New Year's. I did my 10 favorite towns. And so, because I get that question a lot. And so I just like, here's, at this point of videos I've made, here's my 10 favorite places. And like Cottonwood Falls, Kansas is a really good one if you've ever been there.
Where is that? What county?
Chase County. So a little bit north up, Council Grove, kind of in that, a little bit west of there, I think. And it's just a beautiful little town, like brick downtown, great courthouse. And they got falls. They got little river falls there. So that's always one of the ones that was in that video. But I like, that's a cool town, but I like the more abandoned kind of unknown stuff. So like Pitcher, Oklahoma, which is just across the border. If you're interested in that, that's the place to go. And it's totally abandoned, but there's all these buildings that are still there. And it's just like some sort of zombie apocalypse movie set is what you feel like if you're interested in stuff like that. And they have they recently put some historical displays. They hadn't had that when I first video I did there. And I went there this year just passing through because I always like passing through there. And so now they have a bunch of historical displays of telling, because there's a lot of people who've done videos about Pitcher. So that's...
Yeah, well, I knew about Pitcher.
Yeah, and that's just right across the border. It's just right down there. It's just a couple miles, or a mile. It might be 1 mile on the other side of the border.
Like when you drive to Grand Lake or one of those... Grand in Oklahoma? I think you kind of cut right through Pitcher when you go to Grand Lake.
And Route 66 goes through right that corner of Kansas, right in the bottom corner. And Pitcher is on, I think, 69 or something, and it's right next to Route 66. So if you're on Route 66, you're within a mile or two of Pitcher. You just have to go off on this road and go check it out. So that's one for sure. If you like that kind of stuff, you have to go there, especially living here. But yeah, I'd have to pull up my list. I don't know. I should have been prepared for that one.
No,
but,
yeah. No problem.
There's a lot of cool ones in the West. When I go to Western Kansas, the county seats, there's always like one town in the county, and they got a lot of history, and there's got a courthouse, and it's kind of unique. So I always enjoy the county seats of the small little counties and learning about them and why that usually that was there, because that's where the railroad ended up coming through. And then you find out, well, where was the original county seat? And it was like 3 miles over here, or was some other town, and they had tried to bribe the railroad to come through there, and the other town got it. And, they had to steal the court records to get it, so those are the fun things when you just like, I had no idea about any of this stuff. But Clark County, Kansas is one that I really enjoyed. I had no expectations about that one. And they have this really cool lake, and you would never think there's even water in that place. And they have a really nice big lake in Clark County. So that's true. I think that would probably be a hidden gem that I found not too long ago. Ashland, Kansas is in Clark County. It's the county seat. So that was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we both really enjoy what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it.
Keep doing it.
Yeah. Good luck on the podcast. We'll put it out to as many people as we can, and you guys can keep growing. It's a fun adventure, this YouTube thing. It's a different kind of adventure, but I'm sure you guys will figure it out as you go.
Yeah, we're taking it in stride, so we'll see what happens. Keep plugging away and
Having
a good time.
Let me know. I'll come back next year when you guys got 10,000 more followers.
We'd love to have you. Man. We'd love to have you.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll keep watching those videos.
Yeah,
because you do a good job.
Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. There's 3 videos a week.
Awesome.
And then, like I said, we did a membership thing. So I do on the weekend, usually it's like wherever I'm at, I talk into the camera for 10 minutes and say, I'm in Oregon. Here's the hotel. I'm at a track meet. This is what I did this week. It's more just kind of for people that real followers. They like to travel, kind of like armchair travel with you. And then the executive producers, I send them postcards in the mail. They love that. So
all right.
Getting postcards in the mail. You don't get that anymore. They love that.
Yeah.
You guys are not my demographic. 60 and over. That's my demographic. So you guys are
really.
You get that young demographic that I need to get more of.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks a lot for the time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Alrighty. Till next time.